Today we are counting down the 10 most valuable Marvel comics of the year 1958. This was kind of a down year for the company. They were called Atlas Comics at this time. The year before, they had the Atlas implosion, where they had to cancel almost all of their titles due to distribution problems. And so during 1958, most of the year they only had 2 horror and sci-fi themed issues and 0 superhero related comics. Because of that, you'll see that the whole top 10 is dominated mostly by the 2 sci-fi related titles that ran during the entire year. But looking at this chart, you can see the titles that were also being published from Atlas during the year. And you'll see that Marvel Atlas started only 2 new titles this year. They relaunched Journey into Mystery, starting with issue number 49, after it having been discontinued for over a year. And then they also debuted a new series called Strange Worlds, which would only last 5 issues. But by the end of the year, they would have 4 sci-fi / horror / mystery themed titles. So now let's look at the top 10 books of the year. And you'll see these 4 titles dominate the entire list. The number 10 most valuable Marvel Atlas comic of the year is World of Fantasy number 11. It also ranks 242nd of the year. In high grade, you can see it's worth $475 in raw near mint 9.2. Looking more closely at this issue, it's got a Joe Manley cover. Angelo Torres, Jim Mooney, and Ross Andrew all contributed art to this issue. This series would run 19 issues in total. For most collectors, this series is now actually forgotten because it's fairly short-lived. But Strange Tales and World of Fantasy were the only 2 sci-fi themed titles published by Atlas during 1958. This book is really rare overall. On the CGC census, there are only 5 copies graded in all conditions combined, 0 high-grade copies on the census, and Heritage Auctions has only sold 4 copies in the last 2 decades. You can see the Comics Code Authority stamp in the right corner. Comics at this time were 10 cents. Using the Overstreet Annual Price Guide, we can compare all conditions year by year, and we see that it's just got slow, steady movement in all grades. There is demand for all grades because the book is extremely rare in any condition. On the census, the highest graded copy is an 8.0. The number 9 comic of the year is another issue from the series, World of Fantasy number 10. On this issue, we've got a really cool cover, The Secret Men, who are men who can fly. And this is number 9 of the year, 241 most valuable Marvel comic of the 1950s. Again, extremely rare, only 6 copies graded by CGC, no high-grade copies. Heritage has sold 8 copies. Same small growth in all conditions. There are no copies grading even an 8.0 of this particular issue. Extremely rare. The number 8 most valuable Marvel Atlas comic of the year is Strange Tales 66. This was definitely Marvel's best mystery sci-fi title of 1958. Issue number 66 features a Joe Manley cover. We also have Werner Roth and Reed Crandall art. Ranks 193rd most valuable of the decade. 29 copies graded of this issue, and there's 1 super high grade copy. Heritage has sold 5. In the Overstreet Price Guide, there is small growth year by year in all grades. And on the census, the highest grade is a 9.0. Number 7 of the year, Strange Tales 65. This has also a Joe Manley cover. John Severin, John Forte, Bernard Bailey, and Robert Q. Sale artwork, all in this issue, which ranks 7th of the year, 192nd of the decade. 32 copies graded by CGC, 2 high-grade copies. Heritage has sold 8. Same slow growth in all grades. Steady, consistent book. And there are 2 copies graded 9.2 of this title. In 6th place of the year, we have Strange Tales 63. Bill Everett cover and Ruben Morera artwork interior. 191st most valuable of the decade. CGC is graded 18. There are no high-grade copies of this book existing. Heritage has sold 8 copies. Same growth in Overstreet year by year. There are no copies even grading in 8.0 of this book. Extremely rare in high grades, period. Next on our list, the number 5 most valuable comic of the year is Strange Tales 62. Another Joe Manley cover art issue. 22 copies graded by CGC. No high grade copies at all. Heritage has only sold 5. Same slow but steady growth in the Overstreet price guide in all grades year by year. And on the census there is an 8.5 grading as the highest issue. The number 4 comic of the year is a very important one. It's Journey into Mystery number 49. This is the relaunch of this title after it took a break for more than a year. If this was released now, it would be a new number 1 issue, but they didn't renumber comics back then like they do now. We have a Joe Manley cover, Saul Brodsky art, Matt Fox art, and Czech art in this issue. So what's also important about this comic is that if this title had not been relaunched, we would never have made it to issue 83, which gave us the first appearance of Thor, when the title switched to the superhero genre in 1962. On the census, there are 18 copies graded, no high-grade copies. Heritage has sold only 4 copies in over 20 years. Same steady growth in the Overstreet price guide, and there is an 8.5 ranking the highest. The number 3 comic of the year is Strange Tales 64. Higher price tag on this one because it's got a Joe Manley cover, but artwork from Al Williamson, Bob Powell, and Jim Mooney. Ranks 188th of the decade, number 3 of the year. 27 copies graded by CGC. No high-grade copies. Heritage has sold 6. Dark background cover. Steady growth year by year in all grades. This is now an $1,175 book, raw in 9.2 mint. And the highest graded copy is an 8.0. That's pretty low for being the best copy out there. The number 2 book of the year is also a Strange Tales issue, number 61, Bill Everett's famous Haunted Laundry Machine cover. We also have Bernard Bailey, Doug Wildey, and Bernie Kriegstein art in this issue. Number 2 of the year, 163rd of the decade. Only 19 copies graded of this key cover. No high-grade copies exist. Heritage has sold 8 of these. And in the Overstreet price guide, slow but steady growth year by year in all conditions. It's now a $1,300 book. 8.5 is the highest graded copy. And the number 1 most valuable Marvel Atlas comic of 1958 is Strange World's number 1. It is the only number 1 issue you could buy in this genre or any genre from Marvel Atlas during this year. It's the short-lived sci-fi series running only 5 issues, but it has a Jack Kirby flying saucer cover. He also did interior art, and we've even got art from Steve Ditko, Bob Powell, and Don Heck. It's the number 1 comic of the year, 78 of the decade for Marvel Atlas. A very cool sci-fi UFO cover. There are 76 copies graded in this book. This one has a lot more demand, again being a number 1 issue. There are 3 super high-grade copies existing. Heritage has sold 30 of this key issue. In the Overstreet price guide, we've got nice steady growth in every year in all grades. And this is a $1,900 book in high-grade raw. On the census, we have 9.2 grading the highest. Now let's compare these 10 books on the CGC census just to see how rare these books are and what's out there. By far, Strange World's number 1 has the most copies graded with 76, but consider 76 is a very small amount of books compared to modern books that have thousands and thousands of copies graded. And this is just 76 total with all grades combined, the highest being only a 9.2. On the low end of the spectrum, World of Fantasy 11 has only 5 copies graded, all grades combined. And on the super high grade end, you will see Strange Tales 65 and Strange Worlds number 1 both have a 9.2. That is the highest of any book on the census for this year. So there you go. The top 10 most valuable Marvel Atlas comics of the year 1958. We do this series every week. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching.